Hi, everybody. Welcome into More Than Mortgage, episode number 3. I'm Chad Anderson. I always do it. This guy, this side, the mirroring and the
Right.
cameras and the angles and the whole thing. Yeah, this guy here, Zack Jones. Follow us so you see our social media handles. They're the same. I think, well, mine is. Are yours the same across all
Yep.
platforms,
Yep.
Zach? Okay. At Zack Jones Loans, at This Chat Is Real. Give us a follow, a like, subscribe here on the channel. Thanks for hanging out with us. We've gotten good feedback on the first couple of episodes. You're not all completely bored, so that's a good start. So we've kind of gone through some real estate lawsuits. We've gone through kind of the real estate memes and the fear porn, if you will, like oh my God, if you don't buy a house in the next 5 minutes, then you're the biggest idiot on the earth. And trying to actually simplify that and what people's message is when they're trying to get that across to you. So we've had a couple of fun, episodes. And now today we want to get into seasonality. And we're right here in early December, recording this the first Monday of December. My voice is a little hoarse because Roll Tide from this past weekend, by the way. So I'm gonna push through and struggle through this one. But anyway, we're gonna get into some of that seasonality and the discussion. And everybody always has this mental like lock-in of, oh, will you sell your house in the spring or the summer and the kids and school and all these different things. So looking forward to jumping into that today with Zach. How have you been, man?
Good. Just spent a little bit of time out of town this weekend, so I'm feeling
Right.
a little bit refreshed and got some new sights and sounds, and taking a quick break. So ready to jump back into it and see what December holds. And that's kind of where my mind went in thinking about a topic is this issue of seasonality.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting thing in real estate because it's a real thing that can get absolutely blown out of the water and become nothing. This whole aspect of seasonal sales just gets overridden by one little market factor turn. So it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, it really is. The last few years, you go back to COVID, right? Pre-COVID for the Southeast anyway, because COVID kind of started to trickle in. You started hearing about it on the news in December of 2019. And
Right.
then it made its way into the United States. I want to say it was early February. The Southeast still didn't start to see it and get impacted by it until about the middle of March or so. And on a dime, everything turned. And I remember telling one of my assistants at the time, I said, hey, we got to jump because rates were free falling. And this was February. And I said, we got to jump on this opportunity. And I'd make fun of him to this day because he made the comment of, well, we'll be lucky to get a few $1,000,000 of volume out of this thing. I said, no. This, and even I way undershot it. But I said, this is like a $10 to $15 million drop and
Right.
refinance opportunity and people jumping into the market. And it it was 4 or 5x that. I mean,
Right.
it
Right.
was insane, right? You couldn't keep up. You were literally talking to people all day and then structuring deals from 9 p.m. until 1 a.m. to then call them back at 7 a.m. after you're sleeping on a cot upstairs and then calling them back the next morning to go over the numbers and to get it locked in. And it wasn't just refis. I mean, the housing purchase situation went nuts, for
Right.
almost 2 straight years, at least for a year and a half. And so things like that can change a market, and they can dictate the tempo and the speed and the pace and what happens and when. And you're really just a bystander, right? Like, you don't control the markets. You just decide kind of when to jump in and when to jump out. So to me, though, Zach, and you mention it, Nashville and really the Southeast in general is a market and an area of the country. We've seen people just continue to move and migrate over really the last 7, 8 years, not
Right.
just COVID. Maybe COVID accelerated it, but we've been seeing it for a while now. Nashville is a completely different city from when I moved here in 2010. And it just trumps, it seems like, a lot of the seasonality. I mean, what is your take on that? Why do you think Nashville has been doing that for so long, and really the Southeast in general? Like, it just continues to grow and beat out the metrics.
Well, so in order to answer that, probably explain a little bit about what seasonality in real estate typically looks like. And you start
Yeah.
in January. So, January, and we'll talk about Tennessee. January in Tennessee is cold and gray.
It sucks. Let me
It,
just
it,
tell you, it
it-
sucks.
well,
Okay.
yeah. So we're both sun guys, and so it does suck. So, January in Tennessee is cold and gray. One of the things that's kind of interesting about new construction is that those houses don't ever warm up to the daytime temperatures. They typically stay at the nighttime temperatures. And so I'm always, there's this image in my mind about agents talking to me on the phone in January and February saying, "Oh, I'm standing in a freezing cold house and my boots are frozen to the floor and I can't," and it's not that bad in Tennessee. It's not like Minnesota or something,
No.
but it's cold and gray. And so I've always my wife's birthday is in the middle of February. Valentine's Day is in the middle of February. In Tennessee, we have daffodils and buttercups, the little yellow flowers that start blooming right next to the stone walls and next to the houses and in the warmest spots on the south facing walls right at that same time in right in the middle of February. So I always mark that as I start to see these little specks of yellow. I know my wife's birthday is coming up because I'm that guy who
When
always
is her
remembers
birthday,
that.
by the way? What day?
It's sometime in the middle of February. Uh, February 16th.
I'll just leave
so-
the card out. Hope I
Yeah,
get
that's
it
right.
right.
Okay, good job there.
Yeah.
So, so that typically is when I mark the spring housing market starting, and so we have this spring sale market where people are getting out. The trees are blooming, the grass is greening up, and people are out buying houses, and they'll do that for a couple of months into the beginning of the summer, and then we'll have another boost as people decide that they're going to move to, maybe they're moving from one county to the next, or they're moving into Middle Tennessee. They want to get everything settled during the summer, get things squared away, get the kids registered for school, and be ready to go when school starts. And that seems like it gets earlier and earlier every year. And then we'll have a little fall blip. And then sometimes, typically, Chad, this is kind of a funny thing, but we'll see, people say, "Well, I had a really good December." December's always been my best month. And that's, maybe for the last 7 to 10 years. So Middle Tennessee has experienced this seasonality up until maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago when the migration really started into Middle Tennessee. And so you've got, people moving into Middle Tennessee. You've got people moving around in Middle Tennessee, people moving, out of Nashville into the surrounding counties. And so there's this constant flow. And we've seen, I could probably look back in my production and loans closed and see a pretty consistent pattern where there's maybe only 1 month that's down a little bit. And you think, well, it gets busier in the spring. It does, because the calls come in a little bit more. But as far as closed loan volume, it just doesn't seem like it changes that much. And that's, taxes and climate and desirability. And, it seems like, and I just got back from California and people were, "Where are you from?" "Oh, I love Nashville. Gosh, I'd give anything to move to Nashville." And then a lot of Californians are like, "I got to get to Nashville." And it's kind of funny. People are talking about Arkansas in a different way these days. I think Arkansas is our new sleeper. Arkansas and Alabama, probably our new sleeper states in the Southeast.
Look, I've been to Arkansas a lot somehow. I don't know how that happened in my life,
Yeah.
but I've actually been there a lot. I don't see it. All right. No, I
Well,
haven't been in a while, but I will say my times in Arkansas have only been Little Rock for a couple of days, and then Fayetteville, because I went to watch Alabama play
right.
against Arkansas,
Right.
or I was working for Alabama and the team was playing at Arkansas. And it's been a while, so I'll give them a little benefit of the doubt. But I do know that Fayetteville, Bentonville, top left northwest corner,
Yep.
they are really pushing, trying
Right.
to get people to move there and offering incentives and bonuses and grants and all these like housing promotions and things like that. I forget what else is up there. I know, Walmart's headquarters are up there,
In
but
Bentonville. Yeah.
yeah, but they're doing more and more. They're really making a push for that northwest corner up in the Ozarks.
Well, the retirement situation, like in Hot Springs and up in the Ozarks, that's what people are talking about because it's so affordable. And then
Yeah.
you've got there's a lot of tax pushes and incentives coming along that I'm seeing in the news that are probably going to be a push and a real boost for Arkansas. People are looking for affordability, Chad. That's what it comes down to. And so, can
True.
you get quality of life and access to services and reasonable taxes? And I did published a reel this morning on Instagram about property taxes in Tennessee and the way that they're assessed. And I probably have taken more heat on social media in putting together home buying scenarios where people are just out and out calling me a liar about Tennessee property taxes because they simply can't believe it, that these are real. As I put
It's crazy.
a tax a proposal together for what a monthly payment is on a $400,000 house. People are like, no way, you can't pay property taxes that much. Property taxes are more than that mortgage that you're promoting. It's like, well, I mean, all I can tell you, go look on the tax assessors.
Look it up on
Google the
Zillow. Millage rate.
Yeah, just look at it because it's a huge boost. We can talk a lot about Middle Tennessee being one of those places that has overcome some of this seasonality, but that's really not, I think, the topic that we want to cover today. It's more kind of my idea here now as we sit on this cusp of interest rates tempering a little bit. Did we come over the crest of the peak? Maybe. I mean, I think that both you and I are maybe cautiously optimistic, cautiously hopeful that we're going to be going on that downward trend as we get into this election year and the true tempering of inflation, which is going to help those interest rates come down. We may be in a situation where we're experiencing right now in this little window, a pretty good normal seasonality to the market, where we might see a slow spring, January and February. But literally, I think that, we could come off with some great news in December about interest rates and a little bit of publicity about that, and fall off the edge of a really hot market and be just going like gangbusters like 2020 for January and February. I think that that's possible.
Yeah. The point here is, look, Nashville, Middle Tennessee, and a lot of pockets in the Southeast, or a lot of areas in the Southeast, we have seasonality in the sense of pretty much no matter the market, there's the spike in the summer. No, whatever's kind of happened throughout the year, the summer still ends up being the busiest. But what our point is, and kind of getting a message across and out there, is that you don't see the fall off in December, January, February, like you do in others. Some markets and areas of the country, it is literally like a roller coaster. You see this in the summer, and then it can really slow down and take a dip.
Right.
And
well, you can't get into a house because there's 3 feet of snow in Fargo. You're not
right.
going to probably buy it. You can't even see the yard, right?
Correct. And we still believe that there's just so much pent up demand that people want. They still want. And the human brain's interesting because people have to think that something is now the new norm before they act. Like, a lot of times humans don't really try to forecast. For example, they look at the immediate and the present, because if they forecasted, right, Zach, they would say, I better buy a house today because eventually these rates are coming down, whether it's in a year or 3 years, it will come down. And I'm a sports guy. I love sports betting. It's fun. And the reason Vegas wins, the reason the house wins, is why, Zach?
Because they're always looking way ahead down the road, and everybody that they're betting against is in the passion of the moment.
Because the public is always wrong. That's what people need to understand. The public is always wrong. as a majority. The public gets it wrong. So if you kind of do
That's
that,
very interesting to
isn't
say
it?
it that way. Yeah, but
But
yeah,
it's true.
yeah,
Vegas wasn't built on a bunch of people going out there and winning. Okay.
right,
So the public
right,
was wrong.
right.
It's just fun to do it. It's a losing hobby. It's just like paying to go to a theme park. You're
Yeah,
spending your money to go to an adult theme park where they hand you cards and your number hopefully beats the dealer's number. And
and
sometimes you walk away with some, but
right.
more times than not, you don't. But the
Enjoy the
public
ride.
right,
Yeah,
exactly. Sometimes depending on what you drink, you throw up afterwards too, you
yeah,
know?
and you're
It
gonna
all
be scared to death for half of it, right?
right. So, look, nothing's scarier than you having a 20 and a dealer flipping 11, all right? Like,
Right,
nothing's scarier than that.
right,
So, my point is, if the public is always wrong, it just, again, to me, proves and shows what a perfect time this is, because if
right.
you ask your neighbors, if you ask the general public, hey, are you buying right now? Hey, are you refinancing right now to get rid of the credit card debt? Hey, are you buying while the housing market is cooled off a little bit? Hell no, man. I'm staying put. I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing 7%. I'm not paying the extra $300 a month that it's going to cost me to buy the house. Even though I can afford it comfortably, I'm just not doing that because that's dumb. That's stupid. You shouldn't be doing it at 7%. These rates will come down and we'll be okay. And it's like the stock market. If everybody's on a stock, it's going to go the other way.
It's the
You know,
wrong time. Right, right,
exactly. You
right.
you literally, money is made, wealth is built, millionaires and billionaires are made because they zig when you zag. And
Mhm.
that's literally it, guys.
Always.
And we're all part of the public, okay? We all have made bad decisions. We all have bad opinions today, and we will all continue to have bad opinions and bad decisions made in our lives. You simply have to do your best, most educated, sit down, understand logic, reasoning, best guess, and a good faith guess and rely on experts,
Mhm.
because if you follow the herd, you can't all be rich. You
Right.
can't all be right. If you were all right, if every person was correct in their assessment, right, you wouldn't have 10 offers on every house. You'd have one offer on every
Yeah.
house. You'd have two offers on every house, because people say, I'll just wait and I'll just buy something, seasonality or not. And that's what can hurt people. And so on the seasonality side, you're right. And Zach, this is just such a good topic for this area, because people kind of get trained in these cliches. Oh, well, the February's slow. Nobody's buying right then. Like,
Right.
don't put your house on the market. The truth is, mortgage applications overall, and especially here, are the highest they've been in what, about 7 weeks? And we're at a 2-month
Yeah.
low on
Oh, yeah.
interest rates,
Yeah.
somewhere
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
So those things are real. And in a market and in a region of the country like this, they actually get accelerated a whole lot more and
Right.
and quicker. There's not as much lag time. Is that right? Like, there's just not this drawn out lag time where you can sit back and study and make a decision. It happens a lot of times faster than you're ready to react to it.
And I think that that's a very important point about this market and a number of other markets that are kind of in the Sun Belt. I mean, we've done a lot, both you and I have done a lot of business in Florida, and it seems like the extremes in Florida, they go higher, they drop lower, they go
Mhm.
faster, and there's a lot more volatility. The peaks are higher and the
To
valleys are
chime
lower.
in on that though, and
Yeah,
maybe you were getting to this, so you can cut me off if you were, but the reason people love Florida, but then are so fast to pick on Florida. Florida is a great place to live. I love Florida. It's got 0% state income tax. It's got a lot of benefits for retired people. It's obviously warm a lot longer throughout the year, especially you get to the southern part. It's pretty much warm year round.
mhm,
As long as you can dodge an alligator, you're going to be just fine. But the state of Florida also is a place where people buy their vacation homes. And that's
Uh,
where the volatility comes into play,
Yep.
is because it is the vacation spot. So while it's so great for people in their primary residence, the volatility doesn't come because Florida's a bad place to live. The volatility
Right.
comes because people are trying to buy secondary vacation residences and then rent them out when they're not there so that they can afford to have a house at the beach. That's why. And then when the market slows, or the Airbnb and Vrbo slow, or people don't go on vacations as often, or interest rates go up and the prices are already up, and so the justification of what you're going to make on the rent versus what the payment's going to be is a negative cash flow. Like, those are the reasons. Like, Florida is still phenomenal, in my
Right.
opinion. It
Yeah.
literally just is a situation where it's a combination of people retiring, moving, primary residence, great for primary home benefits, retired people. But because of so many investors or people who want that vacation spot, that's why sometimes it gets a bad rap for being so volatile.
Well, it happens on both sides too. I'll add to that idea that when the market tempers a little bit or goes down a little bit, there's a lot of selling. But it also happens when the market goes up. People say,
Yeah.
"Oh, now it's time to get out," because they haven't been to their vacation home. The kids haven't used it. The grandkids aren't coming anymore because they got too old and don't like it anymore. There's just a lot of volatility because it's so much easier to sell a second home than it is to sell a primary residence and move your whole family. So
Yeah.
the going back to this idea though that we've got this a more of a consistent market here in Middle Tennessee, and it's still so vulnerable. I think in a spot where we're in right now, with regard to following the crowd and the seasonality, and when everybody else is doing it's too late. That's kind of a pretty good rule of thumb in real estate to be following. This pin up demand, I believe, is one of the biggest issues that we've got working against us for people who are looking to buy a house right now. And we could literally just fall off a cliff in terms of what we've got going on in this market, with a little bit of turn here or there. There's a few little factors that could happen there. We could have a particularly warm spring, Chad, and it could tip off kind of a wildfire of activity. And we could have a particularly cold winter like we had. I guess it was last year. It was particularly cold, and it might shut things down to zero for 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, and then just absolutely go blazes if there was some good news about interest rates. So we're in a very precarious spot, maybe as far as being in the market for potentially buying real estate. I don't know about you, but literally in the last 2 weeks, I've seen people come back in that popped out of the market last fall, and early this spring. They just decided that, well, I don't know if they decided, they just kind of fell off. But I've had several people kind of pop back in, and then a number of new calls coming in. So it's hard to judge, but it seems like activity is picking up. If you said that the Mortgage Bankers Association says that mortgage applications are up, I could attest to that in my pipeline.
Yeah, it's interesting. What's funny, Zach, is I've done presentations for home buyers. Like, we're at the point that, not that this shouldn't always be done, but kind of gone even an extra step more than normal, where I've done Zoom calls with families after hours or early in the morning or whatever. And I would just get to the point where we would start sharing screens, because people don't go into the offices as much anymore. Like,
Right.
it's funny from a mortgage perspective. You used to always like gather up all your stuff and then go down in a big folder and sit in front of a guy who's behind a desk in a suit and a tie and cufflinks. And now here we are, and I'm sitting here with a sports hoodie on, and we're talking about, mortgages on a Zoom and on YouTube and Facebook and everything else. And that's the difference in today's markets and how
Mhm.
much it's changed just over the last 10, 15 years. And it's funny though, we're talking about where people, they almost get greedy. So I literally have done a couple of presentations where you say, all right, here's the rate. It was, say, 7.5%. Okay, that payment's too high. All right, obviously the buy down has been the hot topic for about 2
Right.
years now. Okay, well, if we can get your payment, to the 5.5 rate for 1 year and the 6.5 rate for the second year, and you're going to refinance, hopefully, it's not a guarantee, but by the third year, you're going to refinance and rates will be lower. And maybe we can get you a permanent rate of 6.5, 6.75, 5.75 if we're lucky, whatever the number is. And, what do you think? And it's like, well, I really love the 6.5, but I need that permanently. I'm just too scared. I'm too scared. Like I'd be living too thin if it ever did get back to 7.5. Okay, respect that. I understand. I'm not here to force you. It's just to present options. Now, rates over the last 2 months or the last month or so, depending on your credit, the national average right now for a VA loan or an FHA loan is 6.5, according to Mortgage News Daily. Those same people, though, are still not pulling the trigger.
Right.
And that's just interesting to me. And it's okay. I'm not bashing someone for not pulling the trigger. That's not the point. But I do start to ask people, are you just uncomfortable or are you now gambling? So that's two different things, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
are you all of a sudden a financial guru? Like, because I don't know when rates are going to drop. We have our ideas, but we don't know for sure, right? Like we're doing our best guess forecast and we're relying on other experts who, told us May 10th was going to be the salvation day. So it gets to be real interesting because we've said this on a previous episode. When that first domino falls in a market, it just picks up steam after
Right.
that. Like at some point, the rates hit a threshold and everybody says, all right, let's go.
Now's
Let's
the
get back
time.
in.
Right.
And they do it because all it takes is one person to see the house they want, but then miss out on it because they were
Right.
still waiting on the rate. And this
Right.
could be January, not June, literally. And then two people want this house and fight over it. And then here comes a third person because they heard rates got back to a certain point. And then it just kind of starts to snowball. And then
Right.
this seller sees their neighbor sell and what they got for it. So now these two sellers are on board. And then this seller's watching from afar. And then two more people come in. And maybe they don't realize we're still so incredibly short on inventory. So incredibly short. The problem with inventory that also affects seasonality is back in 2010, 11, 12, nobody was building new homes. Home builders didn't fail us on purpose. Home builders failed us because they didn't build enough houses during that stretch to supply the future demand of this country. And a lot of that still circles back to banks because if home builders building a home, odds are they're doing it on credit or on warehouse
Yep.
lines or something from a bank. And when the bank sucks those dry and says no more because of what just happened and we had to get bailed out, then all of a sudden your pool of builders is completely limited. And now you just don't have enough people. You just don't have enough working hands to be able to build enough houses. So I just thought that was interesting too, to add this in as we kind of wind down here. But even as rates start to trickle down, it's like the casino thing again, right? You don't
Right.
know when to stop. You don't
Right.
know when to, at some point you have to cash in your chips. And people, it's funny. I do the same thing on certain pieces of life. You go, oh man, all right, that's what I wanted my payment to be. Well, we're here and we got here a little faster than I
Right.
thought. So let's keep riding and see what happens. But then, just like the last episode, we kind of show you that future value and the future ramifications if you wait too long. So it's that like, all right, where is it okay and not okay? And what are you risking and what are you, potentially losing depending on your decision? And like we said before, you won't know the right decision was made until 2 to 3 years from now.
Right.
So you really just have to make a decision, that you're comfortable with and then just know you're going to live with it.
Well, I think it's human nature too to latch on, and this is one of the things that I hate about the rate discussion. And everybody focuses on interest rates so much. We're trained to do it. We're trained to shop interest rates. We're trained to focus on rates as being the be all end all. And unfortunately, the guy who's the slickest talker about rates sometimes, is the winner of all winners when it's not really the best deal. So, but I think that when you're talking about rates, it's an easy thing to say, well, my rate or my payment, I'm going to wait until it gets to 6 1/8 or 5.5 or 5.375 or whatever it is. And that's not really the real reason, Chad. There's a generic fear out there, and it's easy to latch on to an interest rate or a home price or a economic metric or a president or whatever it is, the neighbor down the street, and say, well, that's my excuse for not taking an action that I'm afraid of taking.
Yeah.
And then you lose even when the president changes or the rate gets right or the price goes down or the neighbor sells, you don't take action. Then what's been happening is basically you've been working under an excuse that's a lie, because that's not your trigger point. And I think we've all got to know where our trigger point is. It's like, if you accept that the
Yeah.
house is always going to win in a gambling situation, then you go in with a preset limit and say, I'm going to have fun until I lose, this amount of money, and then I'm going to stop. Or I'm going to have fun until I win this amount of money, and then I'm going to jet out and be ahead.
Yeah.
But we don't adhere to those preset limits, or we go in and we're saying, oh, well, we'll see how it goes. And seeing how it goes is a recipe for trouble, in my opinion. Whether it's at the casino or in real estate or in business or in relationships or with your diet or whatever. I mean, that's a bad plan. We'll see how it goes, right?
A good rule of thumb might be to always just do the opposite of what your neighbor does, unless you realize your neighbor's doing the opposite of what you do. Then you might want to
And yeah,
self-reflect a little bit.
well, opposite of the market. What is it?
Yeah.
Buffett said something about, be greedy when everybody else is scared and be scared when everybody else is greedy. Is something like that.
Yeah.
It's a good plan not to be following the pack. And so the seasonality of real estate kind of has some hidden traps in it. I've always said to people who, get with me this time of year and get pre-approved, is like, well, this is a terrible time to look at houses. There's not much out there. And I say, no, it's actually a great time, because that seller knows that you're serious as a heart attack about buying a house if you're looking for houses between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And they're very serious about selling. They need to sell if they've opened their house up full of decorations and, having to vacate when people are really kind of huddled down and trying to get ready for the big holiday event. So it's actually a great time for the super serious to be really involved.
Recessions make more millionaires than any other
Yeah.
economy in
Yeah.
the United States, just FYI. So
Yeah.
millionaires are created out of recessions. So that doesn't mean you don't have to go be a millionaire, but if you kind of have that drive and desire and you want to watch things and understand things and process things, like deviating from the pack, like Zach was saying, that's the way to go. So all right, that'll do it for us. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, seasonality in real estate. The final thought on that, there's still you do what's best for you and your family at the right time and what you're comfortable with and what you can afford.
Yep.
But there's also never a bad time to buy real estate. Real estate over time continues and continues to outrun and outpace just about everything else, unless you just happen to buy Bitcoin in 2012. Other than that, you're probably going to be a winner when it comes to real estate. And don't let other people scare you and create fear in your brain into tricking you to being uncomfortable with a real estate
Right.
transaction.
Right.
Okay. Make sure you're comfortable and understand the good, the bad, the potentials, the outcomes, all those things. Reach out to Zach or myself if you have questions. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to help. Drop comments in here as well. Love to answer those and engage with you there. Follow Zach at Zack Jones Loans. I'm at This Chat Is Real. We're pretty much on everything at some point or another. So hit us up, reach out to us. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. share with your friends, your agents, your builders, your family, whoever you got. We'd love to have them as part of the crew here on the channel. So have a great one, everyone, and we'll see you next week.